All right, welcome to your deep dive. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, so today we're going deep into Exodus chapter 11. We're talking the King James Version, of course.
Classic.
Yeah, classic for a reason. So, to set the scene, we're coming off a pretty intense series of plagues in Egypt.
Things are getting pretty dramatic.
Yeah. And Pharaoh, he's not exactly known for being flexible. He and Moses, they're kind of at a standstill.
It's a real showdown, isn't it? This clash of wills.
Totally. And this is where chapter 11 comes in. It's like a turning point in this
Yeah.
whole struggle between Pharaoh and God, really.
It's interesting because on the surface, it seems like a conflict between two men,
Yeah.
but it's really about the birth of a nation founded on this belief in one God.
Right, the Israelites. And this chapter, it really sets the stage for everything that's to come.
Huge.
Huge is a good word for it. So the chapter opens with God announcing one final plague to convince Pharaoh to finally let the Israelites go.
But it's not just another plague, is it? It's the climax of the whole conflict.
Exactly. God even tells Pharaoh straight up, I will surely thrust you out hence altogether.
No more messing around.
No kidding. And what's interesting to me is that God could have just freed the Israelites like that, just
Yeah.
boom, you're free. But he didn't. He chose this escalating series of plagues.
It's a statement, right?
It is. It's like he's demonstrating his power, not just to Pharaoh, but to everyone.
Establishing his authority.
For sure.
Yeah.
And not just in that moment, but for all of history. I mean, we're still talking about it.
That's true. And speaking of interesting choices, there's this part where God instructs the Israelites to ask the Egyptians for silver and gold.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit of a head scratcher at first, isn't it?
It is, but think about it. They're not just taking it, they're being told to ask for it.
Right, and it's not presented as looting either. It's
Yeah.
more like a divinely ordained transfer of wealth.
It's more like reparations.
Yeah, I was going to say, it almost feels like a reparations for centuries of forced labor.
Exactly. They build an entire nation without pay.
Yeah, you'd think they deserve some compensation on the way out.
And it's not unheard of. In many ancient cultures, gifts were often given upon release from servitude.
Huh, I didn't know that. So it fits in with the historical context.
It does.
Still, though, it's hard to imagine the Egyptians just handing over their valuables. These are the same people who enslaved the Israelites for generations.
The text is clear. It emphasizes that God gave the Israelites favor in the eyes of the Egyptians.
They are, huh?
Even Moses is described as being very great in their sight. It's almost as if they felt compelled to give generously.
Compelled, like they had to.
And favor, in ancient cultures, that was huge. It meant you had the blessing of the gods.
Oh, I see.
Going against someone with divine favor, that would bring down some serious consequences.
So maybe it wasn't just generosity.
Maybe not entirely.
A little divine pressure. I like it.
Makes sense, right? It's this incredible power shift. The people who held the Israelites captive now practically begging them to take their valuables.
Poetic justice, almost?
You could say that. But even with all of that, with the plagues, with this divine favor, Pharaoh remains defiant.
Talk about stubborn.
He's so used to being in control, so blinded by his own authority that he can't even fathom a world where he's not calling the shots.
It's like the power has gone to his head.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the 10th and final plague, the death of the firstborn.
Yeah, God declares that every firstborn in Egypt, human and animal, will die at midnight. It's hard to even imagine.
Imagine that silence descending on Egypt. Then the wails of grief as every family discovers their loved ones gone. And not just human firstborn, but livestock too.
Wow.
This wasn't just a family tragedy. It was an economic devastation, like a sudden stock market crash, but with added heartbreak.
It's chilling. And amidst all this horror, the text makes a point of saying that no harm will come to the Israelites or their animals.
This distinction between them and the Egyptians, it's incredibly stark.
Yeah, it's like this visual reminder of who God is protecting.
Exactly. It reinforces this idea of the Israelites as God's chosen people.
Set apart.
Protected. It's a powerful representation of God's covenant with Abraham.
And something that's going to shape their identity for generations to come.
Absolutely. So we have Pharaoh still refusing to budge, even after witnessing all of this.
He's seen the plagues, the power, everything, but he still says no.
It's incredible. Moses leaves in anger, and the chapter ends with this feeling of immense tension. We know the Exodus is coming.
But it's clear it's not going to be easy.
Not at all.
No, alongside the biblical text, we also have Matthew Henry's commentary to add to the mix.
Right. Always a variable perspective.
One thing that really stood out to me from Henry was his point about God's commitment to righting wrongs.
It's a recurring theme.
It is, and in this chapter, he really drives it home. He says those who are injured, those who are wronged, and who wait patiently for God's justice, they are never losers in the end.
Powerful words.
They are. Especially for the Israelites, who had endured centuries of oppression. It's a message of hope.
It really is. And Henry doesn't stop there. He goes on to suggest that it's not just about physical liberation, it's about spiritual freedom as well.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
He's saying that even while surrounded by enemies, the Israelites were experiencing a newfound freedom of spirit.
Because they knew God was on their side.
Exactly. They had this inner strength, this unshakable faith that gave them a sense of freedom even in the midst of their suffering.
It's like their physical journey mirrored a deeper internal journey towards freedom.
Freedom from fear, freedom from oppression, freedom from those things that hold us back.
And that brings us back to the listener. Why should they care about this?
Because it reminds us that true freedom isn't just about breaking free from external chains.
Right. It's about confronting those internal obstacles as well.
Those limiting beliefs that keep us trapped. Just as the Israelites had to confront Pharaoh, we have to confront our own inner pharaohs if we truly want to experience lasting freedom.
So we have this idea of physical and spiritual liberation set against this backdrop of escalating conflict and divine power. This is what makes Exodus chapter 11 so compelling. But I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the plagues and their psychological impact.
Oh yeah, especially that 10th plague.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
Think about it. The Egyptians are trying to make sense of these events. The Nile turning to blood,
The swarms of locusts.
darkness covering the land. These were things beyond their control, beyond their understanding. It would have been terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And each plague seemed to be a direct response to Pharaoh's defiance.
It's like God was saying, oh, you want to test me? Okay, let's see how you handle this.
It's almost like God was deconstructing their entire understanding of power, showing them that there's a force greater than Pharaoh, greater than anything they've ever known.
Exactly. And for the Israelites, these plagues would have been both terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying because they were caught in the middle of this divine showdown,
Right.
but exhilarating because they were witnessing the power of their God firsthand.
I never thought about it like that, but yeah, talk about an affirmation of their faith.
Right. They're seeing that the God who promised to deliver them is actually capable of doing it. Their faith is being forged in the fires of these plagues.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. And that shared experience, that collective trauma and triumph, that must have been instrumental in shaping their identity as a people.
Absolutely. It's what binds them together as they embark on this journey towards the Promised Land.
Speaking of the Promised Land, it's interesting how Matthew Henry connects this physical journey to a spiritual one. He argues that the Exodus is a metaphor for the journey we all undertake as we strive for spiritual growth and liberation.
It's a powerful analogy. Just as the Israelites left behind the familiar comforts of Egypt, we too must be willing to leave behind our comfort zones, those patterns of cotton behavior that keep us from reaching our full potential.
That takes courage, though, to step into the unknown. The Israelites were heading toward a land they had never seen, with only the promise of a better future to guide them.
A leap of faith.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes faith requires us to do just that, to take a leap.
Absolutely. And just as the Israelites faced obstacles and setbacks along their journey, we too will face challenges and moments of doubt on our path to spiritual freedom. But the Exodus story reminds us that even when the journey gets tough, we are not alone.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. From divine power and justice to the psychology of oppression to the promise of liberation. As we start wrapping up our deep dive into Exodus chapter 11, what do you think are the most crucial takeaways for our listener?
Well, for me, it's the power of faith. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the Israelites were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing a seemingly invincible enemy. And yet, they never lost sight of the promise of freedom. Their faith in God, in themselves, and in a better future is what carried them through.
It's a reminder that we all have that inner strength, that capacity for resilience, even when things seem hopeless. And sometimes it takes a crisis, a challenge, to really awaken that strength within us. The Exodus story shows us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
And I think another key takeaway is this idea that freedom is a journey, not a destination. The Israelites' journey didn't end when they crossed the Red Sea. It was just the beginning of a much longer, more challenging, but ultimately more rewarding journey toward the Promised Land. And that journey wasn't just about physical freedom. It was about forging a new identity, a new way of life based on their covenant with God. It's a process of growth and transformation that takes time, patience, and a willingness to confront those internal obstacles that hold us back.
It's a powerful message that resonates with us even today. We're all on our own journeys, facing our own challenges, striving for our own version of the Promised Land. But Exodus chapter 11 reminds us that even when the path ahead seems uncertain, we have the strength, the resilience, and the faith to make it through.
And who knows, maybe those challenges, those obstacles we encounter along the way are actually opportunities for growth, for transformation, for becoming who we're truly meant to be.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about avoiding the tough stuff. It's about learning from it, growing from it, and ultimately using it to fuel our journey forward.
Exactly. And who knows what incredible things we might accomplish when we embrace the challenges and have faith in the process.
Well, before we wrap up our deep dive into Exodus chapter 11, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Imagine you're an Israelite on the eve of the Exodus. You've witnessed these incredible plagues, you've heard God's promise of deliverance, and you know something monumental is about to happen. What emotions would you be feeling? Fear, excitement, hope, and why?
What a powerful question. It really puts you right there in the heart of the story, feeling the weight of their history, the anticipation of the unknown, and the sheer magnitude of what they're about to undertake. It makes you appreciate the complexity of their experience, the mix of emotions they must have been grappling with.
Because it's not just about leaving Egypt, it's about stepping into a future that's completely uncertain. It's a leap of faith.
It really makes you think about what it means to be free, doesn't it? And what we're willing to risk, to sacrifice, to pursue that freedom.
Well said. And that's the beauty of Exodus chapter 11. It sets the stage for this epic journey, a journey that continues to inspire and challenge thousands of years later. It reminds us that freedom is worth fighting for, that faith can move mountains, and that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope can prevail.
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Exodus chapter 11. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going. It's like their physical journey, out of Egypt, it mirrors this deeper internal journey towards freedom.
Freedom from fear, from oppression, from all those things that hold us back.
Exactly, exactly. And it's a reminder to all of us listening that true freedom, it's not just about breaking free from like external chains or whatever.
Right. It's not just about the physical stuff.
Yeah.
It's about confronting those internal obstacles too.
Yes. Those things inside us.
Yeah, the limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs that keep us trapped.
That keep us stuck.
Yeah. And it's like, just as the Israelites, they had to confront Pharaoh, we have to confront our own kind of inner pharaohs.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. If we really want to experience that true lasting freedom.
It's that inner critic, that inner voice that tells you you can't do it.
Totally. Yeah. So we've got this idea of both physical and spiritual liberation, right?
Yes.
Set against this backdrop of escalating conflict and just straight up divine power.
It's a power combination.
It's powerful. This is what makes Exodus chapter 11 so compelling, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I want to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier about the plagues and specifically the psychological impact.
Oh, yeah, especially that 10th plague. Oh, my goodness.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
I mean, just trying to imagine. You're an Egyptian, right? You're trying to make sense of all these things that are happening.
Yeah.
The Nile turning to blood, the swarms of locusts, darkness covering the land.
Like, what is going on?
Things beyond their control, beyond their understanding. It would have been terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's like every single plague, it seemed like it was a direct response to Pharaoh just saying no.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you want to test me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how you handle this.
Okay, bring it on. So it's almost like God was like deconstructing their whole understanding of power.
Yes.
Showing them that there's a force that's even greater than Pharaoh.
Greater than they could even imagine.
Greater than anything they've ever known. And then you think about the Israelites, right? And for them, these plagues, I mean, it must have been both terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
But also exhilarating.
Absolutely. Terrifying because they're caught in the middle of this divine showdown.
Right.
But at the same time, they're witnessing the power of their God firsthand.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that, but you're right.
It's a powerful affirmation of their faith.
Talk about an affirmation. Like, whoa, that's amazing. And so they have this shared experience, this collective trauma and triumph.
Exactly.
And that must have been so instrumental in shaping their identity as a people.
It's what binds them together as they embark on this incredible journey toward the Promised Land.
Speaking of the Promised Land, I think it's fascinating how Matthew Henry connects this physical journey to a spiritual one.
Right.
You know, he argues that the Exodus is really a metaphor for the journey that we all undertake as we strive for spiritual growth and liberation.
It's a powerful analogy. Think about it.
Yeah.
The Israelites had to leave behind the familiar comforts of Egypt.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we had to be willing to leave behind our own comfort zones. You know, those patterns of thought and behavior that hold us back from reaching our full potential.
That takes courage, though, to step into the unknown.
It does.
I mean, the Israelites, they were heading towards this land that they had never even seen before.
Right.
With only this promise of something better to guide them, you know?
It's a leap of faith.
It is a leap of faith. And I think that's such a powerful reminder for us that sometimes faith requires us to do just that.
Just take that leap.
Take the leap.
And, you know, along the way, the Israelites faced obstacles and setbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And just like them, we're going to face our own challenges.
Of course.
We'll have our own moments of doubt
Yeah.
as we travel on that path toward spiritual freedom.
Absolutely.
But the Exodus story, it reminds us that even when the journey gets tough, we're not alone.
Not alone. So we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
From divine power and justice to the psychology of oppression to the promise of liberation.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. As we start to wrap up our deep dive into Exodus chapter 11, what do you think are the most crucial takeaways for our listener today? It's got to be the power of faith, right? Even when it seems like everything is stacked against you.
There really is.
The Israelites, they were totally outnumbered, didn't have the weapons. Outmatched. Facing this seemingly like invincible enemy.
Yeah.
And yet they never lost sight of that promise of freedom, you know?
They held on to that hope.
They did. And it was their faith, you know, their faith in God, their faith in themselves, their faith in a better future.
That's what carried them through.
That's what carried them through. It's a reminder to us, you know, to everyone really, that we all have that strength inside, that inner strength.
That capacity for resilience.
Resilience.
Even when things seem hopeless.
Even when things seem like there's no way out.
It's just there.
It's there. And sometimes it takes a real crisis, you know, a challenge to really awaken that strength within us.
It's like it's dormant. And then suddenly it's ignited.
And the Exodus story, I mean, it shows us that even in those darkest moments, there's always hope. Always. And I think another key takeaway here is that freedom, it's not a destination, you know?
It's a journey.
It's a journey. It's not like you get there and you're done. The Israelites, their journey, it didn't end when they crossed the Red Sea.
No, that was just the beginning.
It was the beginning
of a much longer, more challenging,
definitely more challenging,
ultimately more rewarding journey.
More rewarding
toward the Promised Land.
Toward the Promised Land, and that journey, it wasn't just about like physical freedom.
Right. It was about so much more.
It was about forging a new identity,
a new way of life.
Yeah, based on their covenant with God.
Exactly. It's a process of growth and transformation. It takes time. It takes patience.
You got it.
And it takes a willingness to really confront those internal obstacles.
Things that hold us back.
That hold us back.
Yeah. It's a powerful message. And it still resonates with us even today. You know?
Absolutely.
Thousands of years later.
It's timeless.
We're all on our own journeys, right?
Oh, we are.
We're all facing our own challenges, trying to reach our own version of the Promised Land.
Whatever that looks like for each of us.
Exactly. But Exodus chapter 11, I mean, it reminds us that even when we're not sure what's ahead.
Even when the path is unclear.
Yeah.
We have the strength, the resilience.
And the faith to make it through.
We do.
We do. And you know, who knows, right? Maybe those challenges, those obstacles that we face, maybe they're actually Opportunities.
Opportunities for growth,
For
for
growth.
transformation, for
Yeah.
becoming who we're truly meant to be.
That's a great way to put it,
It's not about avoiding the hard stuff.
Right.
It's about using it
Yeah, isn't it?
to fuel our journey forward.
I love that. It's about learning from it,
Yeah.
growing from it. So before we wrap up this deep dive into Exodus chapter 11, I wanna leave you with something to think about. Okay.
Right.
Imagine you're an Israelite
Hmm.
and it's the eve of the Exodus, right? You've seen these incredible plagues.
Mhm.
You've heard God's promise of deliverance.
It's about to happen.
It's about to happen. What emotions are you feeling?
Fear,
Excitement,
hope.
hope, and why? What's going through your mind?
What a powerful question.
Right.
It really puts you right there in the story, doesn't it?
It does.
You feel the weight of history on your shoulders, the anticipation of the unknown,
Mhm.
the sheer magnitude of what's about to happen.
It's huge.
It makes you appreciate the complexity of their experience,
Yeah.
the mix of emotions they must have been going through.
Because it's not just leaving Egypt, it's like stepping into this future that's totally uncertain.
It's a step into the unknown.
A leap of faith.
It really makes you think about what it means to be free, doesn't it?
It does.
And what we're willing to risk,
To sacrifice.
to sacrifice, to pursue that freedom.
That's so well said. And that's the beauty of Exodus chapter 11.
Hmm.
It really sets the stage for this epic journey. This
Yeah.
journey that still inspires us and challenges us all these years later.
Thousands of years later.
It reminds us that freedom, it's worth fighting for.
Mhm.
That faith, it can move mountains.
It can.
And that even when things seem impossible,
Hmm.
hope can prevail.
Hope can prevail.
I love that. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Exodus chapter 11.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. Until next time, keep exploring
Keep questioning.
and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
See ya.